We are live. Welcome to Thursday night living in Jacksonville. And tonight is a night that we're actually having a guest, a friend, what would I say? Somebody who can truly talk from experience, you know why you become a friend, Jeff? Because it took you so long to move you here from Alaska and get you in a house. I think you might hold the record for the longest standing relationship until you actually close on a house. And I don't know if I love you more for the person that you are. I loved you because of the sympathy that I had for you for what you went through to get here to Florida or back to Florida from Alaska.
I
So
know.
to introduce my buddy here, Jeff Salzer, welcome to the show, buddy. Good to have you.
Hey, thanks, Greg. Thanks so much. And I apologize in advance. The background's a mess. We're still unpacking and moving in. And I obviously have a face for radio. At some point, my wife will probably poke her head in the door and you'll realize that she's way too hot for me and the kids will run around. So I apologize in advance for the commotion. But yeah, I don't
Do you know?
know what was harder, Greg. The amount of time we spent together is kind of equal to the amount of distance I moved, and that may be part of it. That was a big move.
Yes, it was a huge move, and it was an honor, my friend, to be part of it. But before we get into it, ladies and gentlemen, anybody who's watching tonight, make sure you put in the comments. Please put in the comments where you're watching from, especially if we have anybody that is watching from Alaska, because I don't have it. You're the only person I've moved from Alaska so far. So if you're watching, make sure you put in the comments where you're watching from. And of course, this is an interactive show. So if you have any questions, make sure you also put that in the comments and we'll try to address them. But Jeff's got a lot to unpack because he has done it all. I mean, he moved here from Alaska, first of all. He went through a couple realtors on that side of things, which I helped guide him with. You tried to do a loan assumption. That didn't quite work out. You were in contract for not one, but two homes. You rented in one master plan community and you ended up in another master plan community. You finally moved in. You haven't even unpacked yet. I feel really bad because I've already got you on here and you haven't even unpacked. But man, talk about unpacking. You have had an experience of a lifetime, my friend, getting back here to Florida. Where were you in Florida before you ended up in Alaska? I mean, where are you from, or where did you come from in Florida?
So that's a great question. And for those of where you're watching from, I've lived in 13 states. At some point, I'm sure we'll rattle them all off. But I was born in Panama City. I started kindergarten in the Florida Keys. I believe it was like Sugarloaf. And then I graduated high school in Fairbanks, Alaska. I was Army. My dad was Army. We moved around a bunch. Then I did some consulting work and I moved around a bunch. I lived overseas. I lived in Russia for a year and a half. So whether or not, I've lived in New York. I actually graduated from grad school in New York, lived in the Midwest. So regardless of where you're from, love to be able to share my perspectives with you on what Jacksonville's like. And it's a long journey back to Florida. It really is. And you can't get much further apart on the road system. I think Sugarloaf, the road ends in Key West. And I do know for a fact where I graduated high school in Fairbanks, that's the end of the official road system. There's a haul road that goes up to Prudhoe Bay, but that's it. That's the entire road network for the United States, or not even
Yeah.
the United States, North America.
So, Jeff, it's been so long since we started chatting on YouTube. Can you remind me again why? Why did you? Hey, Jason, thanks for watching from Tampa. Love having you on here, buddy. Thanks for joining us. Why Jacksonville again? Because you have lived in certain parts of Florida. What made you pick this area? Because you don't work in an office here, do you?
Yeah, I do. So Jacksonville, I work for Uncle Sam. I work for the Small Business Administration. Little disclaimer: I'm off duty. I don't represent the government. But I need to say that because, but so there were, Greg, the true story is we're sitting January 1st, and there's another Arctic windstorm coming through. The power's knocked out. And the January prior to that, we spent 3 years in Alaska this time. We came up from Arkansas, and we decided that we're going to stay in Alaska. We bought this beautiful home. Loved that home. I felt like so proud about that home. And then the next January, we're sitting there and the power's out. There's another windstorm. We're wondering about pipes freezing. Like semis are rolled over on the highway, and you know the KFC blew down. And if the KFC blows down, like it's over, right? It's Armageddon. And I go online and I saw the internet, and there was an opening in Florida and an opening in Arkansas. And I had left Arkansas to go to Alaska. And my wife and I just kind of looked at each other and said, let's do this. Let's do this. And when we were dating, we originally talked about settling in Florida. It just took us 18 years to get here. But I applied for the position with the agency and did the interview process. And I actually interviewed from Hawaii, and I hope Greg will bring that back up later because there's a reason I say that. I interviewed from a place that we vacationed at for the job to get here, which is also a place that we vacationed at. And it worked out, and this is where we ended up, and I'm happy about it. And it was a long journey. It was a really long journey. But my buddy Greg really, really helped me a bunch to get through this process. But I don't want to get too ahead of my skis on this one. I'll let you keep the reins.
Yeah, well, where were you? You were in Anchorage, right? Anchorage, Alaska?
Yeah, so Anchorage, Alaska, the closest thing that Anchorage has to a suburb is the Matsu Valley or Matanuska-Susitna Valley. And if you guys ever remember Sarah Palin, I can see Russia from my backyard. By the way, my wife is Russian, and she's very strong Russian. But that's where we live. We lived in Wasilla, and which is about 45 minutes out of Anchorage, and we would commute in there. And that's the closest thing you can get to a subdivision in Alaska. And if you're not living in St. John's or in Florida, subdivision and master plan community are two hugely different things, and I'd love to unpack that as well.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us what the difference is.
Oh, well, I kind of hate to with the expert on the line, but when you think about a subdivision, like, oh yeah, we bought a place, and a subdivision may have a pool or it may have an amenity center you can rent out for birthday parties, and so the states, Florida, New York, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, South Carolina, New Mexico, Illinois, Colorado, Virginia, Alaska. I probably missed one, but those are all the places I've lived. And when I think about subdivisions, it's a neighborhood. But when you get down off of 210, and I call it 210, and Greg calls it St. Johns County, but there's a line that runs through St. Johns County. It's a road called 210. You've got a ton of master plan communities, and it's not just that you have a pool and an amenity center. It really, to me, tell me, what you think, Greg. But it's about choosing a lifestyle, and what lifestyle do you want to choose? Because I'm not just buying a house in a subdivision. I mean, I'm here in RiverTown. Next year, the school opens, and my kids are going to walk to one of the top-rated schools in the state of Florida. It's not rated at all yet, but I can promise you, St. Johns County has some of the best schools. Their after-school activities are things like golf and tennis, and it's just nuts. It's mind-boggling. Don't even get me on the sports in North Florida or Florida in general. Sports is crazy here. But it really is a lifestyle choice. In Alaska, really everywhere we've lived other than here, we usually took two vacations a year. Typically Mexico and some place else to go to the beach. My wife loves the beach. When we get to Alaska, there's a direct flight from Anchorage to Hawaii. It's 6 hours in the wintertime. So we went to Hawaii once a year. We went to Mexico once a year. We got down here last year, and we live where we vacation. It's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. But you need to really kind of understand that mindset when you move down here. Again, I've lived in 13 states. No matter where I am, there I am. But if you want to embrace that lifestyle and really kind of ease into it, then we went to Europe. I mean, I love beer. This is Pilsner Urquell. I probably pronounced it wrong. It's a Czech beer. My wife's birthday's a couple days apart from mine, so we took her to Paris for a day or two, and we went to um, uh, Prague for a day or two for me to drink beer and for her to shop for overpriced handbags. But really, when you live at the place where you vacation, then it opens up these other possibilities. We're struggling, hashtag first world problem. Where do we go to vacation? Because we've got Michael's Beach, we've got St. Augustine, we've got, we had the Disney family pass for the first year. Now we're going to go to the Universal next year. It's just nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And then the number of activities, if you have kids, my kids are in second and fourth grade. If you've got kids, like, forget about it. Like, there's everything you can possibly imagine. Please don't do what my wife did and sign them up for everything, because that almost ran me into the ground. I'm bullish on Jacksonville. Sorry, I digress. I talked too much.
Clearly. Well, I remember when you first called, and really quick, I want to say hello, Vaselis Widler. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Hello, watching from Orlando. Welcome. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. When you called and we connected, you did love your home, and your home was fairly new. You showed me your whole house virtually. I don't know if you remember that, including your wife and children, which you're very proud of, which you should be, because you have a gorgeous family. I mean, honest to goodness. And
way too gorgeous for me.
I was well, you did create your children, so they're your boys are very handsome young men. But I'll tell you what, I mean, the way you talked about it, I thought, I was like, and you talked about watching the YouTube channel. I was like, what do you want? Like, what do you need? You know what I mean? And because you did love that home, and you didn't live in it very long enough, in my opinion, obviously.
11 months in that
11
house.
months in a brand new house, and it wasn't a cheap home. And so you guys really, you made a huge move. You were here a little earlier, so you guys were doing a little long distance stuff. I remember looking at houses with you, and you were calling your wife up, and I was like, man, you've got to just get them over here, right? So and the Alaska market or Anchorage market is not like anything else I've seen. It's a lot harder to sell your home because there's not as a big buying pool there. So, we had that fiasco. We had to, I was like, Jeff, I don't mind helping you on this end, but until somebody's helping you on the other end to sell your other house, we're wasting time, So, we came up with the idea, because you're military, and thanks for your service, by the way, but we came up with the idea because you had an assumable mortgage, to market that at the time, and it worked, but we had a little problem.
Yeah, we're gonna get real, I guess, huh? Let's get real.
Well, we don't have to get dirty, but it's like everybody advertises assumable mortgages. I learned a lot from you because I had only been through one before, and that assumable mortgage and that whole deal took 4 months. Okay, but what I learned from you through that incident is that assumable mortgages, you have to be very careful on the bank, because what I learned about that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I think people need to be educated on it, is the fact that not all assumable mortgages are equal. It depends on the bank. And that the fact that they came up with assumable mortgages was a marketing ploy to make loans more attractive, to repackage them and sell the loan. And so I don't know if some banks really took into consideration that we were going to see rates fly from 3-4% all the way to 7. And so therefore they didn't want to honor these marketable assumable mortgages. They were like, I don't know if I want to honor this or not. And so in this ordeal, how long did we go on? I mean, you got a contract with somebody who was going to assume your mortgage. I'm just curious, how long did that last for? How long did we try to close that for?
I think we got the original offer in July of last year. There was there the buyers may have taken some time. All right, let's throw a huge disclaimer out there. Um, I'm not disparaging anyone. I don't want to disparage anyone, but the reality
No,
is,
I don't want to get into details, right? I don't really want
yeah,
to go there. I just want to know how long was it until we pulled the plug and they ended up doing a conventional loan instead of
we're
assuming
looking
a
at
loan.
July until
March?
the April. April. Well, end of March. I mean, we had a little event in April, if you recall. A
Yeah.
little bit of stress.
Yeah.
So from like July to March, and what ended up actually happening was the bank didn't do the assumption. And what we learned through that process, and again, one of my buddies is well connected in Alaska. I wrote letters to the head of the bank, and I'm not going to mention the bank by name. But bottom line, what we found out was there's basically one gal in Kentucky that's like handling all this stuff, and they don't really have an incentive. They're not making money off of that. And this particular bank actually ended up declining the assumption after 8-9 months, and then the buyers were able to get conventional financing, which means if it's at a lower interest rate and you can't qualify for the loan, but at a higher interest rate you can, it just shows that there's not that appetite out there. So um listen, I've used a VA loan for every single house I bought. I love the VA loan product. It's fantastic. It allows me to keep some cash in my pocket instead of in a down payment for a rainy day. There's some other safety guards in there as well. If you're a first time VA home buyer, the inspection process is going to, preclude you from some of the issues that you're going to run into. But bottom line is, an assumption is a great tool, but I don't want you to think that the assumption itself is gonna sail through. Um, Greg's a rock star for sticking with me, and so are the buyers of our house because they wanted that house. They were actually in that house, but that entire process, there's not the incentive. I mean, bankers get paid off of making new loans and origination fees and those types of things. So if you're considering assumption, talk with your bank. And you know, God, I hope your bank is better than the one I was dealing with. But we don't always choose our banks, right? We go ahead and we get a mortgage, and especially on the VA side of the house, it's a government guaranteed loan. I mean, I work for the SBA. We do government guaranteed loans. They sell those loans in the secondary market, and the desire there isn't always the service of those loans, especially if there's not profit there. So if you're gonna deal with a VA assumption, um, think long and hard about it, and make sure you've got your due diligence. Because when I first met Greg, bright eyed and shiny off of a flight from Alaska, it was a couple of days after I got here. Greg kind of drove me around and we looked at a few things, and I'm like, I'm buying tomorrow. This is happening. Like I got money to spend. I was like a kid in a candy store. And by the way, if you're not from Jacksonville or from South or excuse me, Central or North Florida, you're going to feel like a kid in a candy store. There's just so much going on, and it's just so gorgeous. There's so many things to look at, and you need somebody like Greg. I'm very partial to Greg to kind of reel you back in, because I mean, I'm like, let's put an offer in. Let's put an offer in. I remember we looked at one house, and I'm like, yes, this is it. And he's like, yeah, this is probably about $1.4 million. And while the bank may have done that, like I can tell you, my wife would be like, Jeffrey, you will not spend $1.4 million on this house. You will get cheaper. So yeah. With the assumption process, like it was a nightmare. And the entire deal was very difficult. And I remember telling you, and I'm gonna kind of editorialize for a second, Greg. I apologize, but I told Greg, for most of my life, this is our fifth or sixth new construction home that we bought. I moved around way too much, and most of it I did on Zillow. I found the house. Like, really, what's the value of the realtor, right? I found the house. I found this. Um, on on the buyer side down here, Greg really took me through a difficult situation. At one point, I had to replace my realtor. I knew I needed to, but he wasn't pushy about it. But he was just like, Jeff, like this isn't really sort of the standards that realtors do, and we need to look at this. Whenever you want to buy a house, I'll sell you a house, but let's get your house sold. And Greg helped me out. He actually introduced me to the realtor that ended up finally selling my house. Um, the previous realtor we had a relationship with, and she was fantastic, but was she really? I mean, it just wasn't getting done. It was a complex deal. And Greg introduced me to somebody who actually got the house closed. There was a lot of sticky situations. And on side of that, on the same portion on the realtor that Greg hooked me up with in Alaska to sell the house, again, many folks think, I'll just, you know, FSBO, for sale by owner, I'll do it myself. Why pay the commission? Maybe you don't need to pay the commission if everything sails through. But the bottom line is, when things don't sail smooth, it is great having a professional realtor in your, back pocket to guide you through that process. My wife and I would not be in this house. My kids would not be in this house. They wouldn't be going to the school they're going to, without Greg. And Greg, I thank you for that. And I'll end my editorial, but you made a huge difference to me, brother.
Thank you for that, brother. I appreciate that. And I'll tell you what, I mean, there's a happy ending in this story, folks. We've got the right agent involved in Alaska. We got that deal done. And I think timing is everything, because you got probably one of the best deals I've ever gotten in Rivertown. Phenomenal deal. Amazing, even with rates and everything. We are timing on that, because of the year end with the builder and everything and quick moving. We really nailed that one down big time, where I've been trying to match it and they're like, not a chance. So there's a happy ending here, folks. But again, so another thing that we got to unpack, I mean, I kind of talked about it because I think you had the experience of both in this long span of time. You ended up renting a home and getting your family here first and foremost, because you had to come here and work. And you really fell in love with Shearwater at first. I know you did, and you can't deny it. And
I loved it.
You loved Shearwater when you got here. Loved it. Okay. And of course, I introduced you, and I like Shearwater. I mean, you were talking to some of the builders that I work with that I like. And I hooked you up with one of my reps who's very likable, great salesperson. And I think I'm going to talk about it a bit tonight, because they're selling a lot of homes in there, and there's not a lot of builders I love in that neighborhood right now. There's only some that I prefer. I'm not going to name names, but people are buying in there because there are some phenomenal deals in there as well. Okay, so you ended up renting in Shearwater, and I think that was a good experience, because if you hadn't rented in Shearwater, you might not have bought in Rivertown. Can you tell me about that experience? What attracted you to Shearwater particularly, and then renting it? What happened, and how did we end up in Rivertown?
Sure. And for those of you that are out of the area, I really encourage you to talk to Greg and do the. I have beer, so I'll call it the pub crawl down 210. You're going to start off in Nocatee, and the first thing I told Greg when I got to Nocatee is, why would I ever want to live anywhere else? Why would I ever want to see anything else? And that's a legit statement. Nocatee's beautiful. It's fantastic. There's a lot of things going on, but we're all wired differently. We all come from different places, and we all want different things. As you go down 210, and again, all of my education originally came from Greg. It's been reinforced by many other people, but he'll shoot straight with you. Everything east of 95 is sort of more expensive, and as you get west of 95, it becomes I don't want to say cheaper because none of it's cheap. I was shell shocked. I thought I was going to save a ton of money when I moved from Alaska to here. Um, but when you look at things like price per square foot of house, um, what I bought in Shearwater or what I bought in Rivertown is probably, and keep me honest, Greg, I'm going to guess close to half of what I would have paid in Nocatee. Is that about fair? Same size house, same size lot.
Same size house, probably at least 200 grand cheaper minimum, probably
Yeah,
give or take. Plus, you got a locked in interest rate, 30-year, way below the normal rate. You
yeah.
had no closing costs. I can't do any of that in Nocatee, but let's just be really conservative and say that same house would. And you're right next to a brand new school and you're next to a brand new amenity center. I mean, there's just so many factors there that it's not really comparable. But I mean, definitely, let's just be conservative and say same house would have cost you, not considering your interest rates, not paying closing costs, all that. Let's just say 250,
Yeah,
250
so
grand.
250 grand, that's still real money for me. That's significant. And then you worked them well on the Rivertime side of the house for the best deal I could get. So thank you for that. So what I loved about Shearwater from Alaska. Well, I'm sitting. Greg does these great videos. He's got the drones, and my wife and I are sitting in bed. The Arctic winds are blowing by, and it's like Shearwater, and you got the water flowing, and it's like if you're not from this area and haven't lived in a master plan community or driven around master plan communities, you're like blown away. Like whatever the first place you see is going to be like, wow, I wouldn't live anywhere else. This is awesome. Um, the amenity center in Shearwater was fantastic. There's a pool, a lazy river, a slide. There's palm trees. There's music piped in. You got a zip line park. You've got kayaking. All of these things kind of add to this, and part of that is part of the gimmick, right? Because Rivertown just opened up a lazy river, and that's part of it's marketing, folks. I mean, they're competing for our dollars. Both of them are fantastic. What I loved about living in Shearwater, our kids got to meet some great folks. We lived in Shearwater has rental houses. They're not through the subdivision, but they're through a private company. And I don't want to get in trouble, but it's 360 communities, and they have townhouses. And most people in Shearwater think that the only rentals are the townhouses. But back in what they call the new part, but there's like three new parts after that they've added. You've got single family homes that are rented. I actually went over to Home Depot today over in Durban Crossing to pick up some painter's tape to hang some. There's a hack for hanging pictures. We're still doing that. I ran into one of my neighbors in Shearwater, and he bought in Shearwater. He's happy with it. There's just a capacity issue. When you think about the number of people that want to go to a pool on a Sunday, and when you're paying 7, 8, 900,000, some folks over $1 million for a home, and you can't park at the pool, that becomes an issue. And it's not just when you go to your current neighborhood's Facebook page or whatever, you'll see some rumblings, and you've always got that one lady or that one guy that gets on everything. But when you've spent that much money on a home, and then there's this other little nasty secret about North Florida or all these master plan communities, and those are community development fees, or CDDs, and you're spending a lot of money for that. Shearwater, based on the last information I had, I'm trying to be way too political. This is just Jeff, so never mind. They're not building another amenity center. They got one amenity center. It's over capacity, and folks are at each other's throats because like you can't find a place. You can't find a place to
All right, but hold
sit
on,
down
Jeff.
with
Let
the
me play
kids.
devil's advocate because I have to. I'm not
Please.
denying it, but I have a question for you because I had not too long ago a gentleman that was asking if I could sell his home, and I'm like, man, this is not the greatest market to be a seller right now. But he was in there, and I keep hearing about the parking lot. I'm wondering if you solve the parking issue at the amenity center, would the actual amenity center and pools, are they still really crowded, or is it really just about the parking? Because he's like, yeah, people are parking on the grass and whatever. I mean, is it also like you can't find a seat in there, it's too busy in the pool? Is it really that bad?
It gets
Because maybe
crowded
somebody
on.
from Shearwater is watching. They're like, hey, we can't build another amenity center, but maybe we can add some more parking or something.
I decided not to invest in an asset in that community.
Okay. All right. Very good. We'll leave it at that. I think though there are some really good deals in there. I think what happened is that they came in with some affordable housing options. They put a lot of and they do this a lot at the end of every community because it's kind of the end of that community, right? And I mean, I guess if you compare it to a Rivertown's going to end up around 47, maybe 4,800 homes. Shearwater is going to be a little less than that. But Rivertown has 3 amenity centers and Shearwater has 1 amenity center, 4 amenity centers. Sorry, 4. You're right. 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's the seniors had their own.
Oh, okay. The senior, yeah, Watersound. Okay, so Rivertown has 4 amenity centers. They have 1. So I get what you're saying, but I will say you can't. Rivertown's pretty good deals, but I think Shearwater, you can. It's more affordability in Shearwater than there is in Rivertown. Although Rivertown, for the amenities and everything you get, you can be affordable, but they're not really the same. Let's be honest here. You can't buy
and they're
a townhome in Rivertown like you can in Shearwater.
they're not Nocatee either. I mean, and that's the thing. For those of you that are out of the market area, as you take Greg's journey, and I call it Greg's journey because he taught me that. As you take Greg's journey down to 10, the prices may decrease. Listen, Shearwater is a fantastic place. We have great friends in Shearwater. They just built a brand new K-8 academy in the top school district in the state, and there's a ton of great things going on. It's just that community vibe, and if you're fine with like walking to the pool or driving the golf cart on those peak days, and those peak days are peak days when you're talking about like the 4th of July or those things. That's with any community. And if you get involved in your community, you can change how that works if you're part of that HOA. I've been on an HOA. I don't want to be a part of it. What I love about Rivertown is though, they just opened up the new lodge. It's got a lazy river. It's mainly geared towards younger kids. So there's a splash pad, a 4-foot pool. They've got beach volleyball and a zip line park. All those things that my kids love doing at Shearwater. But they're also adding in a kayak rental, and they're building a lake to do kayaks around. But that's mainly drawing the younger kids in. There's also 2 other full pools for other folks. So there's just more access to the amenities.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, I did do a video and I compared Nocatee to Rivertown. And honestly, I talk a lot. I always call it as either River Club or River House. Which one is on the St. Johns River? Which one of those pools is on the river? The River House? Is that what it is? River House or River Club? It's one of the 2 in Rivertown. And we don't have anything like that in Nocatee. It's pretty insane because you're sitting in this massive infinity pool overlooking the river, which looks like an ocean or a bay. It's pretty dramatic. I mean, when I take people over there, and then all those trails that you have along the river is just with the Spanish moss trees and everything. It's beautiful. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I mentioned in any of my videos previously, but my wife and I almost bought in Rivertown years ago before it was anywhere near the development it was today, because it was so peaceful out there. The only caveat for us, honestly, because you're moving out there for more property for your money, but the caveat for us, and it's gotten worse because this place has become more populated in the traffic. It was a 35-minute ride to Michler's Beach from there. And for me, the amount of time I work, I'm like, well, if I go to the beach and I just going there and coming back, that's gonna be an hour and a half just in drive time. I don't have that kind of time. So, and I grew up next to the beach. So that was the only caveat for me, which is kind of ironic because I could count on one hand how many times we went to the beach this summer because it was so deathly hot this year. But that was the only reason why we didn't pull the trigger out there at that time, to be honest with you. Yeah. But the amenities, I would say, pretty good. Yeah, maybe Nocatee has a massive water slides and the water park is a little bit bigger, the splash park. But I mean, Rivertown has some amenities that are pretty impressive. They have a nicer gym, hands down. I mean, now the other thing that I can say is that Nocatee, we have more accessible commercials in our area that you can literally go on a golf cart, which you can't do in Rivertown. And I'm going to say yet, but I don't know, because I guarantee you, unfortunately, and I say this unfortunately, some people may love it, there's going to be so much commercial around you guys. This is just the beginning. I mean, I remember 3 years ago when there wasn't even a Publix grocery store and you had to drive all the way to Durban, but you're going to have so much commercial. Just think about a racetrack right now going into Julington Creek. I mean, if anybody wants to argue me on here, put it in the comments, but 210, when you start getting out to Rivertown, the commercial is going to just blow up and we're not even going to recognize it in the next 5 years. And I'm really going to question, I think you may even be potentially able to golf cart it one day. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but
folks are golf carting to Publix in Rivertown. It's just not legal, but it's happening. So folks are taking their golf carts to the Publix in Rivertown.
They are?
Yeah, they're just. I think it's like a 500-foot where there's not golf cart, and folks are just like showing up in the parking lot.
Okay, so that doesn't surprise me. That's exactly what I'm talking about, because all the commercial is where the Publix across the street and everything to the school, because you guys are right next to the high school as well. I mean, it's inevitable. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest that you're telling me that.
It's absolutely going to happen. I mean, come on. I mean, got any Jersey folks on here? Are you literally going to let 500 foot of pavement stop you from getting to the grocery store? No. You're going to get it done.
No, you're going to get a lithium battery cart that does about 36, 37 miles an hour. And who knows, maybe you'll just have to get a slow riding vehicle, put some license plates on it and ride it. But I don't think you can do it if the road is over 45 miles an hour. So, but I mean, think about this too. And I don't know if you know this, but I mean, I also sell a lot in Bartram Ranch, which is around the corner from you guys. And I'll tell you that now that Pulte Homes is building, I think it's St. John's Landing, they're doing a 55 and older and a regular housing there. I think there's going to be another 700-800 homes there. They have to put the commercial development there to support it all. So that whole area is going to absolutely blow up. And the credit I will say about Rivertown is it is, you have a lot of green space. It feels spread out in there. It doesn't feel like, that all our houses in these master plan communities are pretty close together unless you're in a pie shape or whatever, although you have a pretty big backyard. But there's a lot of
unpack that a little bit.
What's that?
Can I unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, go for it. I'd love
so Shearwater's got great green space, trees. The difference is the size of the green space. In my opinion, Nocatee's got way more green space, but you're also a lot longer of a commute. And that's part of when you get into your community after your day. I drove into Bay Meadows today for work and drove back, went through the traffic, and yeah, 210's a mess. But one thing about Florida is they're building the roads, they're expanding, they're planning for this growth as best as they can. Um, the distance between the green space and the houses in the different communities, and it's not just Shearwater and Rivertown, but also if you look at some of the other communities like Silverleaf and those, that's something to keep in mind because not only is that distance between you and a road, the trees look nice, but if there's only 3 trees between you and the road, what's that do for noise? And so really, when you come down to look or visit with Greg, pay attention to how much space is in between those green spaces and the next community because the separation between communities in Rivertown, what I like about it, um, there's decent separation. I mean, my kids are a third of a mile from the new school that'll open. Both my kids, they'll be in third and fifth grade next year, and they'll literally walk to the new school, which is across from the new amenity center they can walk to. Did Greg mention he got me a great deal on that house? But also, there's separation between these individual communities, so there's more green space. So when we walk our dog, I can walk my dog for a half a mile and not end up in another community or another section of the community.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very well spread out. I do find though it's interesting because it's like one big giant kind of odd circle along the river there, and I do find sometimes with all the different entrances, I can get lost in there pretty easily too. It feels really overwhelming if you haven't been through there a lot. I have another agent that works with me now, Brenda. I was like, Brenda, you really have to know the community really well when you're taking people in there because even I have gotten lost going, wait a minute, I'm disoriented because it is so spread out and it does feel bigger and there are so many different amenities throughout the community. But yeah, I think that it's awesome. So here, let's talk about other things, a couple things like, okay, so Shearwater.
Can I real quick, I got a kid screaming, needs attention really quick. I apologize. I'll catch back up with you. Talk about Shearwater.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the builders really quick. So you go do that. So the reality is that, and this has changed recently, but Rivertown is developed by one builder, and that is Mattamy Homes. And so Shearwater, you have a choice of builders, especially since the beginning. Now you're not, you have a few builders. And so that is one thing, again, that makes Nocatee a little bit more attractive is that we have multiple builders as well with multiple elevations. Rivertown, you mostly have one builder, but now they have the Shores of Rivertown, which is including Toll Brothers, which I think is an amazing community as well. Shores at Rivertown, being on the river there, and it's a gated community. It was so enlightening for me to see Toll Brothers get in there and build that community because it was mostly a Mattamy community. Not only there was other builders, but mostly a Mattamy community, except for a lot of these semi-custom builders on the river. But that really opened my eyes when Toll Brothers came in there, and I was really amazed that Mattamy actually allocated the land for Toll Brothers to build a community there, and it's super impressive. So going back to my main point, most of Rivertown is one builder, and they have their elevations, and they try to mix it up as most as possible. But when you go to a Nocatee, there's 4, 5, 6, 7 builders, and there are multiple different elevations. Things are a little more mixed up. So I think that's another element of a Rivertown, why you can get lost so easily, because really the bulk of it is one builder and they only have so many designs to really make it look different. So I think that's one of the biggest comments we get from people when we come to St. Johns County and we go into all these master plan communities. They're like, everything looks the same. I forget which show they what do we call it? Small. I don't know. I don't watch TV, but everybody always comments that it reminds them of the TV show where for me in my generation, it was Desperate Housewives, where everybody comes out in the morning to pick up the paper and all the houses look the same and everybody looks the same and blah, blah. It's
It gets
completely
very,
changed.
yeah, it gets very
Okay?
step 40 in. Step 40 is what I like to say. Like,
Stepford Wives, is that what it's called?
well, I call it step 40 in, but it's a reference to the Stepford Wives. Yeah, yeah, they can
Yeah.
become very cookie cutter.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what we're talking about. And I've heard that mentioned before, and I don't know what the Stepford Wives is, but I've heard it so many times. And so, again, it goes back to the element that Jeff was talking about. You're buying a lifestyle. And it was one of those things, like I came from a 1970s block home in South Florida that we totally renovated. It was very unique design. And so it was something I had to get used to as well. And a cookie cutter is a good word. But, that's kind of the way it is, because St. Johns County got bought up by all the developers and they're building tract homes, and they're just bidding against the land against one another. And so people are like, man, it's so expensive for this house. It's just a tract house. It's a production builder. Why is it so expensive? I said, because it's the land and all the builders are bidding against each other, or developers are bidding against each other for that land, and it's all bought up. And so it's kind of funny to me, because we're talking about doing some renovations now, because we've been in our tract home. We're in a small local builder here in Nocte, and we're talking about doing some major renovations. And then ironically, I was looking at the socials and someone mentioned, how are you making your tract home seem more custom? What are the changes you're making? And they had a picture of their old staircase with the half wall, and now it was open banisters and wood. Like they finally have the money that they're either taking equity lines or paying for it outright to try to differentiate these tract homes, to make it more appealing, more unique than your neighbor's home. Because that's what you have to do, right? Get your best lot, get the best location, because you can't move your house. And then, over time, do the things that you want to do to it, and you're just getting started, buddy. You got a long ways to go.
I know that first lot we looked at was just so perfect, but I got to tell you, we're so happy with where we got. The one piece of advice I would give anybody coming in from out of state is, in all the places I've lived, no matter where I was, there it was. And my wife and I were at the pool a couple days ago, middle of the week, by the way, after work, the kids are home from school, and we're sitting in this resort style pool, a place that we would have chosen to go on vacation to, that hotel based on that pool. And we're sitting there, and it's home. And you're going to get that, and regardless of what community Greg helps you find. But embrace that lifestyle and realize that you're moving to the place that you vacation to, or you want to vacation to, and embrace that lifestyle, because once you hit these master plan communities, you're going to drive slower. Let your blood pressure get down after work, and spend some time with your kids, spend some time with your family, spend some time with you in that pool. My wife remarked on it. There's been a lot of stress moving from Alaska to Florida. A VA assumption gone wrong. End of the pandemic, we moved up there during the pandemic. But like, that's why you're here, right? Like, live the lifestyle. And Greg mentioned that, and I didn't understand what he meant, but it's a lifestyle. Get home from work, enjoy your beautiful coastal designed home from whichever builder. And yeah, half your neighbors are going to have the same floor plan as you do. Make it yours, and then live and go enjoy the amenities. Go enjoy St. Augustine. I mean, St. Augustine is fantastic. I mean, if you want to go out for drinks, you want to go out for dinner, you want to go, Porpoise Point I probably shouldn't say that online. People get upset. It's more of a local spot, but drive your car up onto the beach, whip out your Blackstone, make some breakfast. Kids are in the water. Go live Florida, and, live that hashtag first world problem. Where am I going to vacation? I think we're going to go to Ireland for vacation this year, because we don't want to go to a beach because we live at the beach. and Micklers or Micklers, I pronounce it wrong. It's fantastic. But the entire coast of Florida is fantastic. So,
Yeah.
please find an expert. You're listening to one right now, and he took really good care of me. And forever, if I have another kid, I'm going to name him Greg. But I'm not having another kid. But this guy took such good care of me. He really did. He had my back. He would have got the same commission from me as he would have from somebody that closed the deal in a week. Greg stuck with me for over a year. He took me through a couple of realtors, and really, you're much more than my realtor. You're my friend, and I appreciate
that, brother. Absolutely. Jeff, you keep it real. I always say to people, luckily the channel usually attracts like-minded people. And I have to say, I had fun. I have fun. Like I do have fun with my people, and I had fun with you. I'll never forget driving around the first few times in the neighborhood with you. It just cracked me up. I laughed a lot, and I yelled at you and I argued with you because I was listening to stories of what you were doing back in Alaska or whatever. And but your loyalty was apparent. You were straightforward, you're a straight shooter, and so am I. And that's all you can ever hope as a real estate professional, that you're working with people that you want to work with, and that as long as you're being transparent, that you're being transparent, and vice versa. That's all you can ever ask for, and you always were always straightforward with me. And I appreciate that, because it makes my job a little bit easier, and we had a lot of fun. You're not afraid to joke around, and if you don't have a sense of humor, you will lose it, because moving, I just watch it all the time. It's so stressful. There's so many dynamics to it. There's so much logistics, and these homes are not by any means perfect. People always want to know who the perfect builder is, and I'm like, I hate doing it, but I've done it once or twice in the other video. I'm like, they all stink, but they own all the land. And, pick what's right for you in the right community. And remember, it is a lifestyle. Just a quick question though, that bar on the riverfront at that pool, have you been there yet? And is it any good? And have you been there yet or no?
I have not been in the pool. My wife and kids have been to everything. I've not.
So you haven't had a cocktail yet at your pool? You haven't had a drink, a beverage?
We went. Well, I've had many cocktails at many pools, just not ones that I bought. But they usually come in a koozie, Greg. But no, the bar's good. They've got good bar food. It's like chicken wings, that sort of thing.
No, but were you sitting at the bar in your neighborhood going, "This is my neighborhood," ordering a drink from the bar? Have you done that?
I will get a video of that happening for the first time on Friday.
Okay, because the first time I went to Nocatee and they told me there were 7 beers on draft, what do I want? My mouth dropped. Okay. And when you grab your plastic cup for $4 and it's a big tall pour, because teenagers usually pouring it for you, and you're sitting by the pool, it's exactly what you were talking about, where you're sitting at the pool and you're like, this is where I live. Like it really, and I love these stories because I did it last weekend, and I went to St. Augustine last weekend. And it's funny because you talk about these things, and I told my wife, even no matter how old my girls get, because they're 7 and 10, they've been here 6 years, they're spoiled. They think this is normal. I said to my wife, no matter what happens, I said, we got to keep doing this before they're too old, and enjoy this and soak it in and never take it for granted. And I promised myself that, and even on a Saturday when we go to the pool and I know I had to go show houses at 3 o'clock, whatever, I had 1 beer, and I'm like, I know I have to go to work after this, but I still, just to remind myself, just to pinch myself, how fortunate we are to live here. And I still do it every year. The first week of school, driving to school in the golf cart, and we carpool with the girls next door. My neighbors have the same age girls, and we take turns taking the golf cart. I still video it every year. They know Dad on the first day of driving to school in the golf cart. I'm still going to do a goofy video, make fun of me, make fun of the girls, or whatever. And they almost expect it. And the first year that I would do it, they didn't want to be in the video. Now every year, even the neighbors' girls, everybody's trying to get into the camera because it's exciting. It's fun. It's a new school year. Who the heck gets to drive to school in a golf cart, for crying out loud? You know what I mean?
Shiny white sneakers and Dad take them in a golf cart. And folks, that's really, you know, we talk about Greg and Give Back Realty. That's what Greg gives back. He helps understand you, and I don't want to sound like an infomercial. He didn't ask me to
You
do
do.
it.
You sound like an infomercial.
I want to share with you.
I did not to say this, by the way. It's just
You can get rich by selling tiny classified. No, Greg understands who you are, where you're at, and which community you fit in, because we don't know. But to get into that and to just breathe a little bit. And that's the key point. We spend all this money to get down here and find the right community, but to just live, because at the end of the day, that's all we've got. And to love on those kids, to love on that wife, and live in vacation. And it's a mindset change. I work during the day, I vacation outside of work. And that's what we do. My wife goes to the pool every day over lunch. You know, she goes to the gym. We got a great gym here. The second one, they open up a new one at the new one. You know, she goes to the gym in the morning. She goes to the pool at lunch. The kids are on swimming teams. The activities for kids, if you got kids, it's out of control. It's nuts. You know, after school in Richmond isn't basket weaving. It's golf. It's tennis. I mean, it's nuts. But Greg, you really did give back to me in a lot of ways, because we found a place that fit our personality, and you didn't pigeonhole us into a community. You listened, you understood, you stayed with us, where a lot of realtors would have been like, you know what, I'm going to go find my commission elsewhere, or I'm going to wait till you get done. But Greg and I talked every Friday, every week for almost 52 weeks. Where are we at? Where's it going? What's happening? And I know you as well as I know my family. And by the way, once the bookshelves are done, I will have you and the kids over, and we'll barbecue. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you for spreading your joy and helping us get set.
Awesome, man. I think I'm going to wrap it up here because you spent 56 minutes with me here. I appreciate your time, Jeff. And of course, anybody who has any questions, it's your last chance to ask that one question, whether it's about Shearwater, whether it's about RiverTown, or anything. Those are the reasons I send those screening questions out to people, because I do want to know your story so that it can minimize the time spent, because this place has so many different opportunities for places to live. One question, Jeff, if you had the time and the luxury, would you have built instead of buying a quick move in, or you're like, this is perfect? Is there any thought ever in your mind like, I wish I built?
You know, if circumstances were different, if I could have picked out certain things, sure, I would have. You know, Greg worked with me on our first house in RiverTown, but our Alaska house didn't sell in time. And that was also spec, but we watched it come up from the foundation up. There are a couple things there's some things you don't anticipate, like, oh, they don't run Cat 5 in certain places. So sure, I would have absolutely considered that if I had known originally when I was coming here, I was going to spend a year renting, and then sure, absolutely. Why not?
Okay. I didn't build either.
That being said, real quick, the deal that I got, I would have chosen that over picking my own house.
Yeah, that's true.
Greg got some money knocked off. Like,
that's true. Yeah, I think it's key for everybody to know that Jeff bought at an ideal time where it was year end for the builder. They had a lot of inventory. Rates were high, so they were offering to buy down. So he kind of got the timing and everything just all lined up at one time, which is very rare. But the only way you get those kind of incentives and deals is when the stars align, where there is a lot of inventory, the rates are high, the incentives are high, and it was year end. You just had everything lined up perfectly to get the best deal. And I know our sales rep, who I have a good relationship with, is like, yeah, this is going to be one of the best deals for sure. So anyway, we'll end it on that.
You're being modest. I'm going to cut you off. You called me and said this is the best time to do something. That's what Greg's valuable for. He knew when the best time was. So sorry.
I do know that. I do know that. I mean, you guys are my friends. Between you guys and my sales reps, the biller reps that I have a relationship with, all of them, that's all I do is I drive around, I look at the houses that are being built that I'm representing my clients, and I go visit my reps, and I spend time with you guys. Like, those are my friends. Like, we joke about it because, you know, other than my kids' friends, and I know their parents, I don't really have any friends because I'm always out with you guys, or I'm out visiting the building sites, and I'm also visiting my reps who I have good relationships with that I know that will go to bat for me if there's something wrong, you know. And you know, there's a big difference between working with a good sales rep at a builder sales rep and a bad one. You know that. You've had the experience of multiple reps at two different communities. So you know the difference from even at Shearwater and RiverTown. There's a difference of working with an experienced, reputable rep, as well as a realtor. It takes a team, a tribe to get this done right. So I think you ended up exactly where you were supposed to be, my friend. And it's been an honor and pleasure. And I'm going to let you go hang your pictures, get your dang house set up. You know what, man? What I love about you is I called you up literally yesterday, the day before. I'm just still trying to catch up with school and everything. And I go, Jeff, will you come on Thursday night? Dude, you didn't hesitate. You just said yes. I appreciate that so much. You came on you have a family, a wife, 2 kids, a Thursday night, and you didn't even hesitate. You go, come on, man, I'll join you on Thursday night. I appreciate it. Love you for that, brother.
Love you as well, Greg. Hire this guy.
All right.
Hire him.
It's a bromance, gentlemen, people, ladies, everybody watching, anybody who tunes into the recording, put it in the comments. Anything you want to know, we'll try to respond to that. And again, we'll see you. We're gonna be dropping videos next Tuesday and next Thursday night. Of course, if you're thinking about moving the area, I'd love to be your real estate professional of choice. Even if it's 90 days, 180 days out, it doesn't matter. Let's start having that conversation. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.